Welcome to Into the Unknown with Mike and John, Season 2, Episode 5.
Five!
John and I are on the scent of yet another witch, Moll Dyer. Pulling from rich, southern Maryland lore, we examine this interesting case, and we won't stop until we are mollified.
Oh!
Seems like dire circumstances. You're welcome. Let's get started. I'm Mike Duber.
And I'm John Fitzpatrick.
All right, we're here again, episode 5. It's going to be a high five. This is going to be a high five. We're going to be doing a great job today.
Okay.
All right, John, this one is another one from your storybook.
Yep.
What are we talking about today? Kick things off for us.
Like I was telling you earlier, as we record this episode, I was driving out here and noticing that here being our undisclosed location,
We might give it away.
Out in the country, and noticed that the leaves were changing and saw the pretty yellows and golds and reds and browns. Yeah, just beautiful, beautiful. Put me in a real Halloween-y mood. I know this will drop well after Halloween, but it was putting me in the mood, and I was thinking today is the day to discuss witches and monsters, and we are going to discuss witches and monsters.
Kind of gives the listener an idea of when we're doing this.
Yes. But it's it's the right time. It's the right time to do it. So this story is about witchcraft in the mid-Atlantic colonies, specifically Maryland. We did touch a bit on the witchcraft when we discussed the various morphing legends around Black Aggie in season 1.
Yep.
But this story is also wrapped up in clear folklore, not just the witch trials and accusations. And I say that because our subject, Moll Dyer, was not was just one of a handful of Maryland witch trials, or actually, I screwed that up. She was not one of the handful of witch trials.
Okay. I can see where. I can see where
I'm reading this, and I thought I made a mistake, but no, I shouldn't second guess myself. I know what I wrote.
You had it well.
I know what I wrote.
Right?
Yeah, Moll Dyer is not one of the handful of Maryland
we just
witch
talked
trials.
about this too.
Yes, and therefore left. That's why I screwed it up. Yeah, Moll. Let me do this one more time.
That's quite all right.
We're keeping all this in, aren't we?
Of course.
Yeah. Moll Dyer is not one of the handful of Maryland witch trials, and therefore left scant evidence behind.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll talk about what I mean by that later.
Yep.
The primary source for this legend about Moll Dyer is a well-told tale out of the Leonardtown area of St. Mary's County, which is in the extreme south of Maryland's western shore.
And we love to loop it in. We mentioned St. Mary's County in the Howard Lodge episode. I think the oldest standing building in Maryland is in St. Mary's County, not far from Leonardtown.
Right.
Just looping it in, man.
Yes. So I'm thinking we might want to breathe some life back into the campfire here. I'll let you do that. Smoke, and tell the story the way it should be experienced, the way that the few people I've met from Leonardtown, because they're way out there in the sticks. But I have met a few, and they were very lovely people. Don't get me wrong. But the way they heard it and first experienced it, so you don't mind if we start the campfire back?
Not at all. Fire it up.
Okay.
Hear that? Sounds great.
I do. And I think you're going to tell this story.
I don't mind at all.
And let me know if you need help.
Okay. Moll Dyer came from the old country, but no one knew precisely where, and she never said. She'd come over to the island colonies far south as a young woman, and that muddied her accent. Some said she was from Devon, or Cornwall, or even Ireland. She was an indentured servant back then and had sailed north to St. Mary's, Maryland, some years ago. Free from indenture, she lived by herself now, in the woods, on the edge of the settlement, and mostly kept to herself. Nobody really liked her. She'd come into town to trade produce for supplies. She was not a regular at church services, and some whispered about that. The only reason people seemed to tolerate her was she had some skill at medicine, or what they called apothecary. It was probably something she learned in the Caribbean and likely what made her valuable to her master. People went to her for lotions and poultices and medicines for aches and pains. People whispered about her handling woman trouble also. In the fall, the harvest fell short. People grumbled. Then the winter set in early and fiercely. It was cold and wet, and then in turn, icy. All of which was fine to a point. Life was harsh back then, and the people expected it, but then the cough started making the rounds, and hungry people got sick, and then started dying. So of course the whispers started soon after the first few deaths. It was clearly witchcraft, and there was only one suspect. Some say the people sent word to the Maryland governor asking for Moll Dyer to be arrested and tried as a witch. But the governor denied the request because he remembered the debacle in Massachusetts Bay Colony only 3 years prior. He wanted no part of that. He left responsibility fully with the people. And thus it was. Moll Dyer heard a commotion in the gloom of the cold evening and looked out from her cabin to see a rabble with torches coming up her path. There were several of the church fathers, but not all of them, and many of the town's burly men. There were women too, but they were at the back of the pack. The mob formed outside Moll's door and demanded she come out and face them. They edged closer and closer to the house, menacing with their torches. In a panic, she grabbed a shawl and dashed out the door. Her sudden appearance startled the crowd and agitated some of them. The angry men tried to snatch old Moll, but she darted out of their grasp. The scene descended into chaos. The disorganized group wasn't clear on a single course of action, and arguments broke out among them. Some continued to try apprehending Moll. Others pushed them away from her. In the growing confusion, someone touched a torch to Moll's cabin, and a flame began to climb. Moll panicked and broke free from the crowd, running down the stream's bed that crossed her land. Other men pitched their torches into the growing fire that had been Moll's home. The crowd grew resigned to the conflagration, watched it a bit, then slowly drifted away. It became the coldest night of the year, and no one looked for Moll. Sometime over the next few days, a brave village lad bundled up against the cold and ventured into the woods in search of some livestock that had strayed away. The sun was not quite at its highest point when the young man spotted something queer through the bare trees of the woods. It looked like a statue. It became clear, but no less wondrous when he got close enough. It was Moll Dyer, frozen solid to a rock. She was kneeling on the rock as if she had stumbled. One hand was fastened to the rock face as if trying to right herself. Her other hand reaching towards heaven, every finger stretched out as if to grasp onto something. Her face was also turned skyward, her mouth open, her eyes pleading. The young man was a bit frightened, but also curious, and he walked a complete circle around Moll's frozen figure, with his eyes transfixed on her. The woods were stone silent, not simply the silence of winter, but preternaturally quiet. The young man ran home to the village to tell them what he'd found.
All right, not bad.
All right. Thanks.
Feeling a little bit of the chill despite the campfire going.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's amazing.
That's a hell of a story.
It's a good story, and that's the Moll Dyer story.
Okay.
All right.
Wow.
I did rewrite it,
Yeah.
trying to match up with a few things we're going to talk about later on, but that is the story. And there are a few odds and ends to clean up, and let me summarize some high points just to make sure that the audience is following along with how we're going to unravel all this again. The local folktale places Moll Dyer as an outsider to the community. They decide she's a witch because the harvest is bad, the winter is bad, the flu that's going around is bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I've got some jock itch, and that witch, what's up with that? Yeah,
yes.
Anything and everything gets heaped on her.
It's
right?
a pretty classic version of the story, yes.
Yep.
Townspeople chase her out of the house. She freezes while she's out on the run. The young boy looking for the livestock finds her dead of exposure and frozen to the rock.
Ooh.
The pleading position in which she's in is important to everything because it's usually interpreted as her cursing the town.
Oh, really?
Either because she's a witch or because she's innocent and falsely accused. And so our retelling left that ambiguous, but that ambiguity is left in some versions of this story.
Okay,
as
so
well.
so if we just stop there just one
Sure.
second, right? So I've got the visualization in my head. So is it she's in mid curse expression, right? And then she's sapped of her life.
And she's reaching out towards heaven. That is part
Yeah.
of the traditional story. Yeah,
Gotcha.
and why would a witch reach towards heaven? That's why the ambiguity is sort of embedded in, even when the teller is saying, "Well, she cursed the town because she's a witch."
Oh, okay.
So it's a very interesting folk tale in terms of that. What's left for quote evidence today in Leonardtown is there's a creek named the Moll Dyer Run, and it's paralleling the imaginatively named Moll Dyer Road.
Wow.
Okay, so we mentioned that in the story too, in the creek that runs across our property. There is an actual 875-pound rock attributed to be the one from the Moll Dyer story since at least the early 20th century, but they insist that
this is
the rock, and it was identified as the rock for years before. And then sometime in the 1970s, the town actually moved the rock from its natural location, which was off of Moll Dyer Road, to a place of honor near the courthouse. And I'm as we got closer and closer to recording, I had to stop the research, but it's possible that they've moved it again. Is it near the courthouse, or is it near the historical center, or are they the same thing now? I was unclear. I'd have to go down and visit Leonardtown to sort that out. Not important. What is important is the rock has 2 indentations that are said to be Moll Dyer's handprints.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot. Again, I like to be surprised by these stories, frankly, and I don't try and do too much digging and spoil it for myself. But I did see it. Of course, there's a big but.
Of course, there's a but.
Yeah, and that it's pretty interesting, right? The rock has these interesting. It does look like a hand print in it.
Yeah.
I mean, not super detailed or anything.
Now I got to ask.
Still, it's very interesting. I think it's fun.
When you were doing your cursory research, did you run across the TripAdvisor for the rock?
No, I didn't.
Oh, we're going to get back to that.
Okay, good.
I have some notes on that, but we'll work into it.
That is a very interesting.
We're going to talk about the rock a little more, so it's
dig
okay.
into comments.
Okay, there are tales associated with the rock. Let's talk about the tales, and then maybe we'll see if we want to talk about the TripAdvisor. People say they are overcome with headaches or nausea when they approach the rock. Although it occurred to me that that's maybe just the general effect of going to the courthouse. I don't know. Got to get that lawyer joke in once a session, right? Right?
Is this a law story?
No. Well, yes.
That's my old refrain.
But yes, it is, even though it's not. And we're going to get to that too. Because if it were a law story, we'd have a lot more fact.
Okay.
All right. In February of 2014, the Weather Channel, of all channels, decided to film a documentary series about weather-related supernatural events because, of course, everybody's trying to get a piece of that supernatural paranormal pie, including
get some
us.
More eyeballs on their weather reports.
So they were actually local. I believe they were out of Washington, D.C., and they selected the Moll Dyer story because of the extreme weather conditions of the story and the fact that it was close to the headquarters.
So it's like a public service announcement. if you're out in this weather, don't lean on a rock.
Don't touch the rock.
Don't-
Don't be like
don't touch any
Ralphie
boulders.
in the Christmas Story and get your tongue stuck to the flagpole.
Yeah, if
Right.
you're licking rocks, man,
Right.
you even got worse problems.
So anyway, they went out, and while filming the Moll Dyer rock at the courthouse, a dangerous storm rolled in and was followed shortly by a tornado warning. And they were doing this in February, so it's a little weird. The film crew had to take shelter in the stone basement of the historic Tudor Hall until the all clear was given. This is my actual noted statement. Tornadoes are rare in southern Maryland to begin with. And February is not tornado season.
Interesting.
Coincidence?
Synchronicity?
Synchronicity?
If I mean, it might
knows?
be a case where I would have to agree with the C word.
Yeah. Or maybe the film crew was lucky because it's actually not uncommon, supposedly, for cameras to lose battery power or suffer other technical mishaps when close to the rock.
Do we know anything about the rock? Like what kind of rock this is? Is this granite?
I
What
was
is
so excited to do the TripAdvisor, and you were asking like geological questions.
Yeah.
It's native. I can tell you, it's native to the area.
Okay.
That
I'm just curious.
It's not like somebody just plopped a rock down here with 2 indentations and claimed it to be
No,
the
no,
Moll Dyer
no.
rock.
But I
Yeah.
mean, like, just do we have any idea of any
Oh,
geologist looking at it and
I know
saying
it.
this is from, it's a river rock and it's of this, it's volcanic.
I don't know. I just know
granite.
it's an 875-pound rock that's popular on TripAdvisor.
It's a nice rock.
It's a nice rock.
Nice.
Let me go on. We'll circle
Are you going to
back.
get to? Okay.
We'll circle back, maybe. Some say Moll Dyer's rock grants cures, too. Okay, this gets caught up in the story about poor Moll. Just like Moll Dyer herself helped people with folk remedies before she was run out of her home, which suggests to some storytellers that whether the rock is help or harm comes down to whether or not your ancestor was among the crowd that evening, wielding the torches and screaming accusations at her before she died.
The rock remembers.
Yeah. Hold on.
Careful.
Let me highlight that so I don't lose my place. And I'm going to go down and read the TripAdvisor on the rock now because this was this was beautiful. I loved it. Okay. Random notes.
Now you're going
Okay.
way down.
Yeah.
This is a big script.
Yep. The Moll Dyer rock has its own review page on TripAdvisor, and it rates 3.6 stars.
That's pretty good
out
for a
of
rock.
5.
That goes to show you.
It's a
like,
rock.
Is it somebody's pet?
I don't know.
It's a pet rock.
This was my favorite. Okay, I'm going to read this one. Before you visit, please know the rock is at Tudor Hall now in Leonardtown. To start, we said, why is a rock in the top 5 things to do list? Obviously, they'd never been to Leonardtown. Is it just an average rock? Boy, were we mistaken! We journeyed anyways on to Leonardtown, Maryland, home of this 875-pound majestic rock. As we climbed a hill to ascend to the resting place of this dazzling rock, we would say this rock blows away Plymouth and Stonehenge, just in the mere captivating aura it puts off. As my breathtaking date and I surveyed this magnificent boulder, we felt entranced by it. We circled the rock, taking in all of its glory and allure. Despite the rock not being that big, it is still such a pulchritudinous rock. As my date and I circled the dazzling sight, we were overcome with emotion. That being said, there is a cool history around the rock, and it is the couple's, all caps, the couple's activity to do in Leonardtown. Please do yourself a favor and visit this bad boy rock if you are in the area.
Folks, John got it a little wrong. This comes from the Moll Dyer romance novel. I'm sorry. What was that? Multitudinous? What was that?
Pulchritudinous.
Pulchritudinous. My goodness. Wow, I'm speechless. Someone wrote that? That's out there?
I did not make that up.
Wow.
I mean,
are you sure? Because
yes,
gosh.
that was on the TripAdvisor. How could I not include that?
I was looking. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm looking in the. I had to go all. You went all the way down to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
random
Because I
notes at
found
the
it
bottom.
later, and I put it
Pulchritudinous.
put it in the notes. Okay, let's get back to the story.
I'm gonna look that
All
up.
right, maybe we'll come back to the rock. We should not forget.
Are we? I'm just waiting. Who's gonna let fly with a joke about that famous wrestler that we all know? Because I'm not. I don't. I'm not going to give
It's the
him
People's
attention.
Rock. Okay. Let's not forget.
Can you smell what this
rock is cooking? Maybe.
No. Nix that. I may edit that out.
Let's not forget the ghost stories in the area.
Okay. So, back on track.
Plenty of people have reported seeing a woman in white, sometimes accompanied by a dog, shifting through the mists along Moll Dyer Road. Hikers and hunters have witnessed similar visions along Moll Dyer Run in the woods. That's the creek. A few of those witnesses have even tried taking photographs only to have them appear as blurs upon later review. So there's a lot of story that's built up around Moll since 1697.
Okay.
Ultimately, we're left with a central question. Was there a Moll Dyer, and who was she? With the other question still being, was she a witch that was killed? Okay, two more questions. So, as I said in the opening, there wasn't a witch trial, and Moll wasn't even taken into custody and officially questioned.
Okay.
So there is literally no legal record against anyone named Moll Dyer.
Okay, got it. Okay, so maybe you're going to get to it, but I mean, where does the idea that there was a witch trial around her in the first place?
Well,
is it just fabricated?
There is nobody.
Out of the air?
None of the stories claim that there was a witch trial. In fact, in my retelling, I wove in some of the explanations about why there wasn't, which was, well, the townspeople went to the governor.
Yeah.
But
And they're like, nope.
The governor says, this is 1697. I just saw what happened in 1692 in Massachusetts. That was a mess. Lots of people died. Most people think that was a mistake. I am not touching this. And we are going to touch on some of the other Maryland witch trials that do exist to kind of pull this back into, why people were still in a witch craze. But there is nothing about Paul.
The
Moll.
governor's like,
that's why
I've got an election coming up. I don't need a bunch of. I'm kidding.
I know.
I'm totally kidding.
Anyway.
It's just a joke.
So anyway, there are no legal records.
Politicians will politician.
That's true.
Go ahead.
Why is this important? Many witch trials under English law in this period hinged on some kind of confession. So it was common to take very detailed notes of the interrogations, and then that becomes part of the record. In fact, Moll was a common nickname in the time period for almost any woman with a given name starting with M. So we're not even sure who Moll was.
We're really just not going to be able to pin it to anybody with any kind of satisfaction.
Yeah. So even if there had been an official proceeding, it's reported many of the colonial records were destroyed in one of those convenient courthouse fires that seems to occur over the centuries.
Sure.
But we're not even sure about that. So
it sounds sketchy even to begin with, right? I mean, it's not like there was a story of an outcome and then, the.
Yeah. So what do we have? Does anything match up against this story? Well, in fact, we do know there was an outbreak of influenza in St. Mary's County in 1697 because back then it did kill people. And that we also know that is precisely the kind of misfortune that throughout Great Britain and the English colonies here in the New World often led to a witch panic.
Yes, you would blame, that comes up, and then you're going to blame a witch, right?
We also
know one living on the edge of your society.
Correct. We also know that there were accusations of witchcraft sporadically made in Maryland and in Virginia, just to the south, during these years. It was not a wholly New England, Massachusetts phenomena. Another interesting historical tidbit, which I didn't know before researching this, is that Maryland was undergoing a period of religious strife in the 1690s, which might have also caused some tension. I don't know about you. My experience was that we were taught in grade school that Maryland was founded by the Catholic Calvert family as a model of religious toleration. However, that's usually as far as they get in school. It turns out that ideal did not last long, as the English Civil War boiled over into the colonies, and the Puritans led a Protestant revolt against Catholic rule in Maryland some years prior to this. Okay, in fact, decades. Long story short, because we're not going to go through all that, although now I'm curious. All right, but long story short, misgivings about religious outsiders remained a flashpoint in the late 1690s in Maryland. If Moll wasn't attending church services, or if she was in fact horrors a Catholic, or otherwise considered undevout by the Protestants, Puritan factions, that might well have also set her up for accusations of witchcraft by her neighbors.
Yeah, especially if you just like, well, I don't like her, but now I have a way to actually go after people, which is
right. Yeah, but
part of the concern with all of this.
Yeah, the time is right. The scene is set. The things are happening. Some things from the story do match up against things we know from the historical record. So, was there a Moll?
Right.
Okay. And
I see what you've got written there. Yeah, let's take a break. We'll come back. This is a good time. Is it?
We'll just leave a little break there.
Okay. All right, gang. We'll be right back. All right, so let's drop back into this Moll story.
Yeah.
We've just so many uncertainties here. What is going on?
So we have a historical detective to thank at this point. In 2013, Lynn J. Buonviri, good Italian name, who's a retired teacher and a museum docent local to St. Mary's County, began an extensive search of the available historical records to determine if there could have been a historical Moll Dyer, and whether or not she matched or could be matched at all to the folklore that had built up over the centuries. Because this is a podcast, I won't keep you in suspense. I'll stick to the important facts that Buonviri uncovered. The real Moll Dyer was a woman named Mary Dyer. Okay. She was born in 1634 in the village of Ken in Devon, England. She was the fourth of 7 children, and she was born into strife. All right, remember that English Civil War I mentioned?
Yeah.
The English Civil Wars between the Royalists and the Parliamentarians were raging. The English Civil War tends to bore Americans, so I won't digress too much more there, other than maybe to say that this was also a period in which accusations in England got used against people.
Yeah, because it's convenient.
Some other people,
and I have actual enemies.
Well, yeah, some people like Matthew Hodgson, if my name
doesn't ring any bells in my head.
Witchfinder General actually got rich off of it for a while until he died. But anyway, the important
kind
points
of like the Warrens going after after demons.
Yes,
right?
yes,
just to bring.
The important point here is that the war sucked resources out of the countryside, including and especially men. So it is likely Mary Dyer learned the skills necessary to be a domestic servant, which was the common profession for lower-class middle daughters in 17th century England.
Okay.
Everything from cooking and sewing to midwifery and healing. She would work for an upper-class family or noble family until a husband was found. That's the pattern.
Yeah, okay.
This was a 2-step process back then. 1,
you would go walk backwards up the stairs with a candle, right?
No.
In a dark house, and then you'd face the mirror.
Maybe, yeah. So, no, getting married back then was a 2-step process in that the family legally had to provide a sufficient dowry.
Okay.
All right, so that's a hurdle.
I apologize.
And 2, an interested man had to appear. which
Okay.
is
Sure,
sort
yeah.
of like
Well,
what you're
yeah.
describing,
Yeah.
which was a
Well,
callback to our Black Aggie
It
episode. If
was.
you
I
weren't-
was about to
yeah,
say
no,
that.
he-
If you're
yeah.
wondering, what the hell is he talking about?
Right.
Go listen to Black Aggie.
I caught the reference.
I know you did. Oh, and that reminds me, I got to laugh at a joke that you were trying to get my attention with on the DC Flap episode. I'll laugh at it in hindsight.
Okay, good.
It was you were saying that the Life magazine with Marilyn Monroe, widely read, folks. For the articles.
For the articles.
That's
That's
hilarious,
right.
John. And I was like, duh. I just kept plowing on. And you're like,
Well-
widely read, Mike. He's not going to get it. Okay, let's move on.
You had one at the beginning of the episode too, and I'm blanking on it now, and I don't want to waste a whole lot more time. But
that's okay.
But it was I was like, oh, I totally missed that because I was trying to read the script like I'm trying to do now.
Well, I was just letting you know.
okay.
You tried to get my attention.
Well,
and I think it's funny.
And I'm telling
good.
you that I caught it then too, and when I remember what it was, I will point it out. Anyway,
Very nice. Okay.
It is actually possible that Mary was briefly married, as there is a record in Devon of a Mary Dyer marrying a Richard Northcote in 1657.
All right.
But that's all we have.
So he was an interested man, and he appeared.
And they may have been able to provide a dowry once. Okay. So we don't know for sure if this is the right person. There could have been more than one Mary Dyer in Devon, and therefore that would be a different person. Or something happened to Richard Northcote very shortly after the marriage. Remember, this is a time of plague and civil war after all. So life was short and brutish. In any event, the Mary Dyer we are following did not change her name.
Okay. Yeah.
While prospects in Devon for Mary shrank in the face of such calamitous times, there was a demand for domestic servants and, frankly, women in the English colonies of the New World.
Yeah.
In October 1669, at the age of 35, Mary became an indentured servant bound to Thomas Lugg for a period of 4 years, and she set sail for St. Kitts Island in the West Indies.
Yeah, my son Jake and I just visited Williamsburg and went to Jamestown, and there was big talk about, bringing women over, to help with population.
With all
and
kinds of
everything
things.
else.
With all kinds of
we
things,
just,
yeah.
I can't imagine, you know what? We traveled across this massive ocean. You know what I forgot? Oh, you left the iron on? No. We forgot the women.
The women,
Dang it.
none of us know how to
To
sew.
go back.
None of
Are
us,
you kidding me?
None of us know how to cook.
Eating this slop?
Yeah, right. No, and
Strange,
that's
isn't it?
very real. That was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
division of labor back then. It's
yeah.
not. We're kind of joking about it, but it was a real division of labor.
Well, it was surprising to me, we should probably bring over some women to help with the advancement of the colony.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I guess in those early establishments, to get that beachhead right in the colony, let's get the men that you can, it's going to be rough, boys, and let's go. But then later, we got to actually
you were
bring in the female.
exactly following the historical pattern.
Yeah.
Anyway, she arrived in early 1670, having survived the hardships of crossing the Atlantic during hurricane season on a tiny, filthy ship.
How could you imagine?
With a crew of ne'er-do-well sailors. And
Yikes.
let's keep that image in mind, because I want to drop that. That's a pin
We
for this
started
episode. We're going
the
to
whole
come back to
season
that.
with a nautical theme of.
Yeah, there's one emerging here, isn't there?
There is, yep.
Okay. At the time Mary arrived in the West Indies, there was actually another small-scale war. Perhaps you're sensing another theme there.
Yeah, tripping over wars left and
Yep,
right.
between the British and the Dutch over control of the individual islands. Also, indentured servitude was beginning to give way to outright slavery from Africa. The African enslaved people were considered a better investment for several obviously awful reasons. And we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I was
Yuck.
thought they would better tolerate the brutal tropical heat as workers in the sugarcane fields. And obviously the master/owners had more legal leeway in how they treated the Africans rather than the English peasants, who still had those pesky rights.
Yeah. Yeah, and there really is an interesting theme coming, because we cover another nautical character later where we touch upon some of those very facts and
some of the
points of view.
Some of the unsettled jurisdictions of the Caribbean, perhaps.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the vying for prominence down in the Caribbean. Yep.
Okay. So that said, the enslaved Africans and indentured English actually shared social and living space on St. Kitts.
Oh, yeah.
And this becomes important.
Yeah.
So when Mary arrived,
smack dab in the Caribbean.
she would have lived and worked alongside the Africans, and she probably would have been expected to teach them how to conduct English domestic chores, cooking, cleaning, etc., the way it was expected. At the same time, it is likely she would have picked up certain skills from the Africans.
Oh, yes.
In particular, medicine, healing, and midwifery skills would have been different, and they probably would have been of interest to her, because those are skills where the real question is, what works?
So here, I obviously being... Yeah. So my imagination is imagining in the quiet when no one is around to hear the exchanges of information between these folks. Say, would you really like to have some information that will help you in your position where you are, and the African enslaved folks are saying, here's some things that we could teach you that will help you very much. You'll thank us.
And you have
I don't know, their indigenous skills coming over from the continent. Interesting.
Especially dealing with, say, diseases or afflictions that might be more common in hot tropical areas. Infections, those kinds of things are, they're similar but different. Anyway, we've got to keep in mind that at the time, Western medical practice was pathetic and chiefly involved bloodletting and amputation.
Right. Yeah. All the way up to Washington's day.
And in the colonies, particularly in the Caribbean, any official doctor or surgeon was a scarce commodity anyway. So if a first aid technique or an herbal remedy worked, it was welcome.
Sure.
Even if it came,
witch or not, right?
Right. Even if it came with some hocus pocus incantation said over the afflicted. Because what they don't know what works. They hadn't discovered germ theory. Right. They just don't know. Is it the thing I'm doing, or is it the incantation? So it is very likely that Mary expanded her already existing knowledge of healing skills by learning from the Africans around her, and that would have included any spiritual rituals that went with them.
Yeah, that might be perceived to be too beyond the pale.
Right. And they're welcome as long as they're welcome.
Right. Until they're not.
Until they're not.
And it's like,
and then it's like, who is she really?
The whole crop died.
Yeah. Okay. So
without that poultice.
Yeah. Mary spent 8 years in the Caribbean. The first
That's
four.
a long time.
Yep,
it's a long time.
The first 4 were to pay back her debt for the transatlantic voyage, and then she needed another 4 to earn enough to ship north to Maryland because she wanted to get to North America.
Yeah.
She arrived in Dorchester County, Maryland in 1677 and soon moved to St. Mary's County. She was 43.
Made it. Okay. Wow.
Her living arrangements in St. Mary's are a little bit murky. She may have worked for a period as a domestic servant and healer and been granted land as part of the deal. By 1697, it certainly appears she was living alone and on the edge of town.
Okay.
So at this point, Buonviri's excellent detective work has uncovered a woman with the right name, who is the right age, in the right place, with the right skill set to be suspect. And I'm pretty well convinced that Buonviri has found the historical
So
Moll
you
Dyer.
feel good about it.
I feel good about that much. But we have to remember something else, because she's got a whole book on this. The reason it was difficult to find a real Moll Dyer in the first place is the lack of record for any witchcraft accusations, an interrogation, and certainly there was no trial.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I want to point out the obvious. There's no record indicating Moll Dyer was killed by her neighbors.
Okay. All right. Now I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Right. And these are in Western society. The records are everything.
Right.
Right. the obvious reasons, right? In the written language, I can read it right off the paper, and it was entered into the record,
Right.
and so forth and so on, right? Barring that, what do you have? You have oral traditions.
Correct.
So we're left with nothing but this story that says, right, and I know you've added to it, but at the end of the day, right, we have this story where the mob, they torch her place. She's flushed from her dwelling on the edge of the town, and then off she goes, running off into the cold and freezes to death.
And the story's been popular and consistent
for a long time.
1697-ish. Yeah. I mean,
well,
we don't know exactly when it was first told.
Okay,
but yeah.
Right.
But
so I'm just pointing out, right? Like we ignore myth and lore to our peril.
I agree.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
I'm not, and I want to point out,
I'm just sort of saying that in general because I would like to refer back to that statement right there.
at some future
and
point.
lots of
Sure.
well, there's lots of other things that we'll talk about where we ignore myth and lore to our peril.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, it's a little bit odd to me what Buonviri does next in her book, which is to argue a very compelling story, and it is compelling, of Moll Dyer's last days that is meticulously matched to the folklore. Mm-hmm. We do know the winter of 1697 was harsh.
Okay.
If not the worst in years.
You can get that from the trees.
You can get
do
all
a core
kinds,
sample in the trees and figure that out.
We also know there was the outbreak of influenza. So including those aspects of the story are not a stretch. But her account of the accusing mob, the arson of Moll's cabin, the discovery of the frozen corpse are all complete speculation. In fact, it's the corpse pleading hands outstretched to heaven, frozen to the rock, that actually made me go back and go, very compelling. Mm-hmm. I'll admit you're coloring within the lines. If it's compelling enough for another reader to believe it, you can if you want. I'm just a little more skeptical than that. I'm not sure it's good history.
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, does that come with the lore that a Leonardtown person would tell? Like you're sitting on the...
Been a while since I talked to one.
Okay. If ever. Oh, well, I mean...
No, I have.
That you wouldn't.
I have.
Oh, you have? Oh, okay. Cool.
Anyway...
Well, I'm just curious. Like, where, that's came from somewhere.
Yeah, and this is a popular story. It certainly fits with all the other people bringing this up on their podcasts, of which we talked.
Okay. Well, I still find it interesting, though, while you're paused, that the hand on the rock and the hands outreach to heaven, right, indicate she's mid-curse and she dies.
Yeah.
To me, that's like maybe some a realization of her ways, or like, or not, or I mean, not even not a curse, but just simply reaching out to her creator, like, I'm coming. Yeah, here I come, and take me with me, or take me with you, bring me up to heaven. Anyway, I was just thinking. It was interesting that was perceived as she's mid-curse. I'm like, is that really? That doesn't seem like
it could be
curse
just
pose.
Please, God, help me.
Yeah, exactly.
These people chased me out of my
thank
home.
You. Right. I mean, for Pete's sake, I'm freezing to
death.
Yeah.
Help me.
I don't know your prayers, but
yeah,
I'd like to.
Yeah. Anyway, it seems as likely to me that poor solitary Mary Dyer was the subject of suspicious whispers that winter. And, just to offer an alternative solution to this, one day she's trudging home through the cold. She's older. She simply stops to rest a bit, falls asleep, dies of some combination of age and exposure. They find her. And then, if the weather turned warmer or the influenza fevers began to break after that, well, it probably seems just as natural to the people. Moll Dyer was the cause. She's dead. The witch is dead. Everything's better now. Maybe the neighbors felt a twinge of guilt over that, assuaged by reminding themselves that no one liked the crazy old hag that much, so she was probably just a witch. From that root, stories do get told for the next 300 years. But I'm speculating too. I'm just speculating along a different path from what's there. And you're right. How much do we give to the oral tradition versus the written? Historians would say we have to give the written one, the records, more weight. But we're at a place in this podcast where we are trying to find a middle ground.
Well, you go into the anomaly instead of dismissing it, that you look at the anomaly and you study it to understand what you're dealing with, right? And so we've got this story. It may be lore, it may be mythical, but it's the facts that we have. It's stood the test of time. I mean, we really don't know how much it changed.
Right.
It comes right smack dab from the middle of an era where witches were...
Yes.
That is a reality.
So we're
the
going to talk
mindset
about
of the
that.
people. Oh, okay.
We're going to talk about that.
I'm not reading
You're
ahead.
segueing nicely.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Okay,
yeah,
go
good.
for it.
Buonviri's version neatly explains why there's no record of a formal accusation and therefore no interrogation or trial. She notes there were only a handful of trials for witchcraft associated with Maryland starting in 1654, and most of these were unsatisfactory outcomes to the victims.
Okay.
So first, let me talk about why I say associated with Maryland. Okay, because in the first case, Mary Lee, the accusation took place while she was aboard the ship Charity of London.
Okay, I've run across this story.
Yeah, Mary Lee fell prey to a rumor that she was a witch and was brought before the ship's captain. He refused to try her and compromised with the crew by saying he would drop her at the next port of call in Bermuda.
Yeah.
But then the weather kicked up, intervened, and the ship failed to make the port. That got the crew excited, and they further believed that Mary Lee had caused the weather so she wouldn't be put off the ship. The sailors seized her, stripped her down, and searched her for a witch's mark.
Okay. Yep. Jeez.
Now, what's a witch's mark?
Yep.
It's a suspect anatomical imperfection or oddity that Satan used to mark his flock. This is well documented in the material of the time, particularly, of course, our friendly book, the Malleus Maleficarum. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
The process was at best humiliating, but given the circumstances and the fact these were not in any sense professional witch hunters, I don't think it's a stretch to imagine that the worst possibility here is it was a sexual assault on her. Afterwards, Lee was convicted of witchcraft by the crew and hung from a mast.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know why we have to bring the sexual assault into it.
Because
I don't think
it's a
that's
bunch
necessary.
of men.
Well, yes.
Stripping down a woman, probing her body.
Okay, this is your modern sensibilities looking
Yes.
at this, right?
Yes.
Which I think is incorrect. I see it coming in. I'm not dismissing it, but what I am saying
Well, I
is
don't know about
that you have all you need in order for this to be strictly them applying what they knew about discovering and making an assessment of a witch at the time. And yes, it's a gross, ham-handed approach to some sort of justice. You don't need the sexual assault to be a part of it. I'm not saying it's not a part of it.
I'm just saying it
but
runs the gamut between those two
All
things.
I'm saying is you don't need it in order to explain how a woman gets hung from the mast of a ship in those days when superstition overrode common sense. And I'm not saying, I'm not pulling it off the table. I'm just curious why that needs to be in there at all.
Why? Well, because someday we're going to do a pretty good deep dive into witchcraft trials and whatnot on a different level.
Okay.
And I think
you're saying that there is an
undercurrent of sexual,
like the witch hunters are really using it as a ruse by which to...
Not all of them, clearly.
Okay.
But, we're talking about...
that makes sense.
I'm just saying,
I asked and you delivered
sailors.
a reasonable...
Yeah,
true.
And that's... And
my question would be this, right?
Frankly, I think you made more of it than I did, but that's okay.
Well, I'm just to me, it's like I was curious why you brought it in. It had crossed my mind when I have run across these stories previously, but there's
definitely there is a sexual undercurrent to the accusations of witchcraft against many women. Not obviously all of them.
Yeah.
But given this particular case, it really, of the ship's crew at sea, doing this ad
I'd be
hoc.
curious. I would be curious to talk to, not that you're not an expert.
I know I'm not an expert.
Okay. But those that may be, that would say, I'm an expert on witchcraft, lore, and everything else. And here's my question. Even if I am a superstitious sailor, right? And there are other superstitions that come with sailors, like you don't have women on board in the first place, and I don't know where that had come apart, but I'm questioning that. The other thing is, in the day, if I am superstitious of witches, and I believe it, and let me just say, maybe the more uneducated folks would be more inclined to believe it than maybe someone more educated, like the witch hunters, presumably. The question was, would I want to have intercourse, even if it's rape, with a spawn of Satan?
Nope,
Is that something that I would want to say?
Let's back up. I didn't say rape. I didn't say intercourse.
Okay. You were saying a sexual assault, and it's
assault.
like, okay, all right, I got you.
Okay.
We're finding all the details and the boundaries.
That's
interesting.
Yes, okay. But that's why I
got
used
you.
that word and not
So
the
just to
rape
not
word.
go too graphic on this, but the sexual assault of just the touching and the fondling. Okay.
I
gotcha.
am nodding
All right,
my
you're
head.
nodding your head.
For those,
okay, that's
for those
fine.
of you who are,
We're not going to go any further.
Who are looking at their,
for those of
at
you
their
who
iPhone
are wondering if this is going to get graphic.
No,
it is not.
No, we're not.
It is not.
No, we have no-
I'm just
I have
trying to
no reason
understand the
get that
mentality
graphic.
of these people.
I'm just
No, I know.
talking about the obvious implications
got
of
it.
a group of men
Yeah.
manhandling a naked woman
Right.
at close quarters.
Okay.
Even in public. I mean,
I get it. I'd be curious to
Yeah.
understand, like, as an area of study, are the researchers finding that was indeed a motivation, that this was just, something that the witch hunters did, right? Because it was satisfying a sexual urge, right? That's the question. That's it. That's all.
I feel like that might be limiting it too much, but I think there's probably a better topic in which we can delve into these
I'm
sexual
curious.
politics of witchcraft. But they are there.
Yeah.
However, we're going to talk about a guy who was accused in a minute. But
Okay.
yeah,
Don't let me pull you off course any further. I had a question.
We'll
I'm
touch
just
enough.
curious.
We'll touch enough on this, but I wanted to talk about the Maryland associated cases.
Mm-hmm.
And someday we're gonna find some other opportunities to really talk about the larger associations of witchcraft, because there are some interesting ones. And I mean, you'll see that when I get there.
There's just a lot of warped.
You'll get-
It's warped from many different angles, and just digging into all the different vectors there.
Okay, so just to finish off, poor choice of words, just to round out the story of Mary Lee, she was convicted of witchcraft by the crew, hung from a mast until dead, and then the captain reported her death when he docked the ship in St. Mary's City.
Okay.
And sort of washed his hands of it at that point. There were 6 others accused of witchcraft in Maryland between 1654 and 1712. Of these, only 2 were convicted. So that we've gone down our rabbit hole, so I need to come back. Remember when I said that witchcraft trials in Maryland tended to lead to an unsatisfactory outcome for the victims of witchcraft, the accusers.
Okay.
There were only 2 convictions of
these
right. 6 that happened in the colony itself. Okay. Rebecca Fowler was hung in 1685. And the only man convicted of witchcraft in Maryland, John Cowman, was granted a reprieve by the Assembly. So he was convicted.
Okay.
Another case where there's satisfactory justice for the accuser.
Yeah.
But then he's granted a reprieve by the Assembly because he's a man.
Oh, is that?
Because of course.
Of course.
Because of course.
Okay. All right. Well,
so
that would be an interesting case to look at.
Blonveri's assumption is that with this record, and given the very recent unpleasantness in Salem, Massachusetts, Moll Dyer was unlikely to be convicted, and they would never see, quote, justice done. It was better for the townspeople to turn to self-help and burn her out of the house, either driving her away or killing her outright. And yes, that would explain the detail in the stories.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's no real evidence
Yeah.
one way or the
Well,
other.
I don't know. I think that sounds very plausible, right?
does.
That, that, and you can fill in a lot of what happens after she's driven out, right? Exposure is going to be a massive issue.
Yes.
You're not going to survive staying overnight out in the freezing cold, especially during a cold snap. This is what happened, and it was very calculated for them who, okay, we're not going to hang a witch, folks, but we're going to do the next best thing, which is effectively, exile her.
Right. But maybe that was the sole...
There goes your home.
Yeah, maybe that was the sole motivation at the
Sure.
time. We
Okay,
don't know.
sure.
So, like I said, without the records, without having any insight into the motivations of the people at the time, we have no idea how this went down, or like I said, really even if it did go down. Certainly, the story has grown up, and there's enough of a skeleton of fact there that we can hang a story on it. And Bonnevery did an excellent job arguing her case. I'm just saying there are alternatives at a couple of different turns in the story.
Sure. Yep.
To say maybe some other things were going on there.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
I gotcha.
Before we close the chapter on Moll Dyer, and I say close the chapter, and I'm looking ahead, I've still got another couple of pages of potential notes here. Before we close the chapter on Moll Dyer, I'm going to point out something obvious. None of the accused, none of them anywhere, were actually witches. And when you talk about the history and folklore of Western witchcraft on a paranormal themed podcast, that's easy to forget. But none of the accused really met the definition of witch under the law, which was a person who made a deal with the devil for magical powers in return. That was the definition in the statutes of England.
And the day. Got it.
Even among the accused who might have thought they were casting spells for healing or love or good fortune, none would have considered it witchcraft because there was no satanic influence involved. They'd have considered it healing or white magic, something benevolent, not witchcraft, which again, by definition, was evil. And there's no real evidence for the survival of an alternative pagan religion, just the scattered folk magic rituals and recipes. You're looking very suspect.
Yeah, I'm letting you finish the paragraph before I jump on this.
Yep.
They, meaning the populace, the people, would have considered it healing. I would accept that, right? That
So would the people
healing.
using the ritual.
Okay, right. Yeah, the people that are partaking. Would they have said white magic? I mean, you brought that term in. They would have considered it healing or white magic.
Now that you mention
I'm
that,
of a
it's
mind,
a loaded term, isn't it?
It is,
yeah.
right? I don't think they're walking around saying, "Hey, well, that was a very nice white magic I got rid of this, this rash on my elbow."
Right.
They're just, and in my mind, they're terrified of this. White magic or otherwise, right? If it's not godly, if it's not Christian, I don't want anything to do with it. They tolerate the person that has...
I think you'll find that's not quite true in the historical record.
Okay, all right. I'm happy to be updated in my thinking, but in my mind, right, that if you hold these beliefs for these reasons, the whole point, or rather the sort of the core of the story is that these strict beliefs lead to strict outcomes. These extreme beliefs lead to extreme reactions to people that don't fit the mold or out of the herd. I tolerate them, but then when I actually believe that my crop died or my pig died because of this witch, right? Like, I don't have anything else to blame, but maybe the witch did it, right? That this extreme belief leads to an extreme action. And I don't think there's a lot of room for them to be saying words like,
you'd
it's
think
magic.
that.
It's what they think. So
let's,
I'm just putting,
let me address
I'm building out what I believe in my head, and we'll see how it changes. Go for it.
Let me address a couple of those points. So white magic, where the W and the M are not capitalized, does pop up in a lot of the historical literature about, well, how would people have dealt with or looked at this. You know, if I'm
Are
dealing
those
with
the
healing,
actual words
right?
they're using?
Yeah, those are words that pop up, and I found them in my research, and that's how they found their way into this. If you're looking at it from a more modern perspective, you know, post ritual magic, 20th century Aleister Crowley, Order of the Golden Dawn type stuff, then categorization becomes important. You know, what kind of magic am I doing? I'm not sure we're talking about that kind of strict categorization back in the 17th century. And that's probably going to lead into the next point you made about, well, how are people looking at this? The fact is, people are messy, which we've said many a time.
Yeah.
So it is possible for people to have conflicting ideas in their head at the same time. Yes, they're puritanical. At the same time, if I have a wound from using my farm implements out, and then I've cut myself badly,
Right.
and I've gotten an infection, I need that fixed. And if
Sure.
Moll can fix my
And there's the toleration part
Right,
of it.
right.
I
Well,
allow it
well-
in my backyard while it doesn't bite me.
but she's exactly, so that comes in. But then there's some more to it than that. Okay, let's
are you
let's
saying
move on
right
to
there is just the idea that we believe that people are holding up these ideals both in their public face and
their
also
private
in the
face.
private face, but
Yes,
in
there's some of that.
actuality, the private face is actually one that's like,
This is
if given an invitation, I might go dance with the devil because I hear the music is wonderful.
No,
Is that
that's
what
not
you're saying?
No.
Okay.
I'm saying that I'm saying that it's not just toleration.
Okay.
They're accepting of it to a certain degree as long as it's working for them. And they're
Okay.
okay.
And
as
that's
long
what
as,
I'm saying.
As long as this person,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I
So
think these are
let's say-
super, super sharp nuances.
They-
If you think
they
there's
are.
a pin to drop here, let's do that.
Well, let me-
because you've got a good bit of script to get through. And,
Not
and we're-
not as much as you might think, but let me,
But
because some of this actually
you wanna
ties
make a
into some of
point.
the further notes that were unscripted, but they're
Okay.
notes. Let's say we've been to Moll several times, for fevers, for wounds, for infections, all that, and she's done me really good. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I've been fine with her, and she seems like she's not a witch because none of it's been evil, and I haven't seen any evil doing.
Okay.
Then the bad stuff starts. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. The flu comes in, the crop's bad, all the things that are beginning to make me think, maybe
what's going
Moll
on?
has turned
Okay.
evil.
All
Okay.
right. Okay.
What happens next in many of these, particularly English-based societies, in England, in the colonies, is that I need to do something to protect myself against Moll before I go worrying about Moll.
Okay.
So you get into things like the witch bottles.
Sure. Yeah,
or
yeah.
amulets.
Okay.
Okay. Things that I am going to begin to do myself. And you're familiar with the witch bottle?
I am.
All right, maybe
I
we
am.
should talk about this for a split second for the audience then. So in a number of colonial homes, when they've gone in to do renovations, they've ripped off the wall and they've found bottles that have been filled with alcohol, water, hair, nails, iron, other bodily fluids even. Yeah. And because it's a folk remedy, it's magic. It's it's evidence of magical thinking that the people themselves put together
as a fetish against
as a counter magic, yes, as a fetish against the witch. So would they have then considered themselves to be a witch because they worked magic? That's the look on your face. You're beginning to see what I'm saying is that they are now using magic themselves to counter the evil magic, the witch.
Okay.
All right,
I get you.
So people are messy.
I get it.
People who, when they're superstitious, because I think there is a there's definitely is a supposition, not unlike what you were throwing out there before, that somebody like a Puritan would have immediately grabbed up the Bible and held it against the witch and used the power of faith to fight the devil. But there are other things that are
No,
culturally
maybe so.
available
Okay.
to them,
Yeah,
like
I
the
get you.
witch bottle or putting up the horseshoe, or it depends on
Yeah,
what
this is
milieu
this
you're
is the
coming out of.
strictly folkloric,
Right.
more traditional. Before these are things that are even older than the religion that they're holding up, right?
Correct.
That these are the things that
Or they're based
that
on those types of
persist.
things,
Yeah,
yes.
longer. Yeah, no, okay, I get
Yeah,
you.
okay.
All right.
So-
I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, so that's why I say people are messy. Nobody was going to consider themselves a witch. It was always going to be somebody else saying, well, yeah, because you were doing all those other things that, maybe I would be cool with. That's why I think you decided
You've
at
crossed
some
the
point-
line somewhere.
You're
and
crossing the
like
line.
there's are things that have gone
Right.
wrong, and suddenly you've turned on us. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I got you.
Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, this
Okay.
this, folks, is where only on a podcast would you get nuance of this degree, right? I mean,
Maybe.
digging in. I mean, we're really pulling out a lot of shades of.
There
lot
are
of gray,
shades.
A lot of shades.
Yeah,
of
there
gray
are
here.
shades of-
It's
yeah.
never as.
I think
Remember,
you
we've said this, right? It's never as simple as it seems.
And I think when you delve into the history, it's a lot more interesting to find how much nuance really exists than, say, if you go to a pop culture movie and get all your witch history from that, because they don't delve into nuance. Nuance is usually bad for the plot.
Right. Well, you can't. You can't express that much.
Right.
In a half an hour.
Right.
Or an hour and a half. Movie. Yeah, I get it.
Okay, so the next
I get
point-
it. So your use of white magic there makes
A little more sense.
it makes some sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the only way to put it to understand the shade of gray we're talking about.
Okay.
But that's okay. Let's move on.
All right. So the other point, it's also easy to overstate that the accused witches were outcasts and misfits. That's certainly an undertone to the Moll Dyer story, particularly as we've laid it out here today. There is a disproportionate number of women accused of witchcraft for sure. And then there's a cultural assumption today that women were of a lesser stature. Yes, women did have a lesser social position in Western society during this time, but that's not the same thing as being a misfit or outcast. For example, there were prominent connected women who were accused as witches in Salem and across Europe, often because somebody wanted whatever property they had. But the fact they had property meant that they were of a social status that was not an outcast or misfit. What made them sort of outcast or misfit suddenly was we're going to other them. We're going to say, they must be different because they don't have the man in their life anymore.
Yeah, well,
and we're now going to accuse them of being a witch.
This is a power struggle, right?
Correct.
This is a power struggle. It's an out of balance society that where a woman can rise to prominence based on the skills that they have, such as the healing of wounds. Like this is supremely valuable, right? And and among other things. But then when they become too powerful, well, the easy thing to do is to find a way to smear them and bring them back down again. So interesting. Interesting.
Well, let's press on.
Okay.
We'll see if you got anything to say about this.
No,
Let's
good.
pull back from Maryland and look at a bigger picture of this witch madness for a moment. Between 1450 and 1750, it is estimated that some 80,000 trials were conducted across Europe and its colonies, with some 35,000 or so executions. But don't let that discrepancy fool you. Many of those not executed died in prison from despair, disease, torture, and abuse, some even before making it to the trial. Also, the estimations are probably conservative. Yes, most of the accused were women, and not a few of them were children. In fact, there were many men accused of witchcraft in Europe, and almost all the werewolf trials, there's a pin, which are considered a subset of witch trials in Europe, and a tale for a different time. All the werewolf trials accused men.
Yeah.
By contrast, British colonies statistics are hardly a drop in the bucket. The first was Alice Young in Connecticut, with a total of 16 executions in that colony. 20 were killed at Salem, 19 were executed, 1 was killed during interrogation, another 13 in Massachusetts before that. In Maryland, there was the one official execution in the colony, the previously mentioned Rebecca Fowler, with another 2, including Mary Lee, conducted at sea during the passage to the colony. Depending on how you want to count, then, the total number of executions for witchcraft in British colonial America was between 50 and 75.
Okay.
While the scale of European witch executions is staggering, the smaller numbers in British North America make the individual stories more tragic, more immediate, and therefore a little bit more affecting. Where it's easier to get to them. There are stories of whole towns in Germany being accused of witchcraft and burned out because of the religious strife.
Almost bordering on pogrom level type of
and that gets
annihilation.
Lost. What becomes the tragedy there is the scale rather than the story.
Well, that goes back to that quote, right? One man's death is a tragedy, like losing millions is a statistic.
Right.
You lose, it just becomes numbing.
Yes.
Interesting.
So, in fact,
wow. Okay.
Here's my point. In fact, while the folklore wants to cast Mary Dyer as an outsider, Mary Dyer's story really wasn't all that out of the ordinary for her time. She survived a very harsh world of war, famine, and disease. She scraped together an existence at home. Like everyone, even today, she simply longed for a better life. Her time as an indentured servant was comparable to many others who made the voyage to the New World. Like you or me, she simply did her best to make her way through the world. And if indeed her neighbors were responsible for killing her, well, I for one say she probably deserved better. And that's where I end Moll Dyer's story.
I like it.
Now we can probably have a few other things we can talk about.
Yeah.
We've got a couple minutes we can work with here, according to my timer.
Yeah, we've got about 7 strong minutes to dig in. So what note would you want to pull up? We already read the fun fact, which is a big section of that. That was amazing.
I'm looking at. Oh, I didn't mention, because this usually gets mentioned in other podcasts right at the beginning. The legend of Moll Dyer is often described as the inspiration for the Blair Witch Project. Remember the movie?
Yeah. Okay. How?
And
interesting
I agree.
thought. But
I agree.
So was it just the case that Sanchez was the author on that, right?
I don't remember. I can pull up IMDb.
Sanchez was the writer
but I did.
on that.
So
did he read the story and then just say, "Look, we got to plant this"? Because that actually is an interesting story.
I think it's the Maryland.
You talk
connection.
about these cultural touchstones.
Yeah.
You've got a Maryland connection. You've got. I know that you enjoy making those social, cultural connections.
Which is why I looked into this.
Yeah, well, sure. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that cued your attention right away. I probably would have stepped over it a little bit. Yeah, that's okay.
Well,
I'm doing more of it. Actually, I make one that you'll be very proud of later on.
Yeah,
in another episode.
Okay. So
anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I even found a couple of websites associated with the movie production that made the claim.
Yeah.
I don't see it. Like you said, I want to make why I don't see it clear in that I don't remember the weather being that big a deal in the Blair Witch. The location is completely changed because we're talking about southern coastal Maryland with Moll Dyer versus Burkittsville, which is in the Middletown Valley between South Mountain and Catoctin Mountain, home of the Snallygaster and Dwyo.
I
put a pin down there.
See what you did there.
Okay.
Yeah, another 20 minutes.
Yeah,
we'll be right in the middle of that
20
one.
minutes. Yeah.
But I think you might be perhaps, I don't know, maybe a little too literal on it. It could be simply the case that Sanchez read the story and said, I need a witch. There clearly have some little tenuous connection to Maryland. Let me plop one down that's close to home that I can get to where I'm going to film. Right, my movie.
Right,
and there you go.
Right.
Could be as simple
it's okay.
as that. Yeah, that's worth looking into. I'm going to pin a potential interview with a gentleman that is good friends with Sanchez and is an author that we went to school with. He was a year ahead of us.
Okay.
So I'm working on that, and that would be an interesting person.
I'm
not going to drop names yet,
I would be curious to know how they made the connection. And I don't blame them for changing things. That's fine. If it was simply, we read the Moll Dyer story and we're inspired, but we didn't want to go all the way down to southern Maryland. We thought the mountain was a better wilderness to kind of explore for our story. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying is
Yeah.
that, it could have been the case that, did you know that there are witch stories in Maryland? Oh, really? Well, that'd be a great movie. And then they built something that was workable and filmable.
Yeah.
Strictly based, and it could have been on an interview. He says, well, what got you thinking about this? I don't know. Moll Dyer was the story I read, and suddenly now it inspired the Blair Witch, but it doesn't have to be one for one.
No. But like I said, but what's interesting is, like I said, I've listened to a number of podcasts that brought up Moll Dyer, and that was one of the first things they said, because they aren't us. They aren't here in Maryland. Those podcasters were trying to make the larger culture connection right away and say, oh, this is it. And I had the exact opposite reaction. And it sort of leaves you with the wrong idea, I think. Whereas at least we've talked about, well, okay, maybe he was familiar with this story and said there is a witch in Maryland.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. So let's finish that off. Let's cap that off. If I put a witch story in Burkittsville, the center of Maryland, and then I execute an internet campaign.
Yep.
Remember, this was late 90s when the internet was brand new, and weird sites would pop up. And I'm expecting you to actually believe this is a real story. It was one of the first found footage movies that used that trope of, found footage, right? I'm going to trick you for a while. No one is going to think twice. Oh, yeah, there are witches in Maryland. Right. Is it real? Yeah. Is it real? Because that was the question.
That was the question
first heard
back
about
then.
it.
Yes, that was
the question was,
the brilliant marketing.
Is this real?
Yeah.
Is it actually real? And that was how he hooked everybody. So that made it amazing as far as bringing stories to the populace. Yeah. So anyway, very cool.
That was I guess the last thing. That's probably where we should drop it. Was just bring up the Blair connection and be done with it.
That's a good one. I think that is a good place to end it on Moll Dyer, because the Blair Witch was no matter how you cut it, a very popular movie. All right, gang. So tell us what you thought of this episode. We kind of really got into some gray areas, and we also heard a very we did. But that's some what maybe some people are looking for. Not everybody realizes the complexity around some of these stories, and it's it's our history, it's our local history. It is a reflection of what we did in the early days of being Marylanders here. So, John, thank you for putting such a great script together for this, and I know I enjoyed it. Okay, gang, so we're going to bring this episode to a close. Remember, we regularly are going into the unknown and the gray areas of the unknown. So keep listening. We've got a really great season, more to come in season 2, and we're really excited to bring it to you. Until next time, this is Mike and John saying bye-bye.
Bye.